Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to show you how to put door handles on my Silverado. I got some color matched door handles yesterday. Ordered these off eBay. They're getting a little harder to find where they're already painted. You can't, GM has discontinued the part, but sometimes you'll find somebody that's posted a setup. They'll work off a Tahoe, Silverado. These I got, like I said, off eBay. I think the guy has a few more sets, but I'll post in the description down below the tools that you need to do this. But I'm going to show you a step-by-step on how to do it. So let's get started. Alright, I'm starting on the back door on the driver's side. So the first thing you're going to need to do is take a small screwdriver or a pick, and you're going to pop this out. You're going to pop this out, and then the one behind here. I wanted to show you guys what this looked like. This is just a little keeper that keeps this on. Alright, once you got all those out of the way, you're going to use a 10mm to take these two bolts out and the one behind the pull handle. Alright, so the next step is you're going to take a prying tool. I got this neat little set. You're going to get behind that and pull it out, loosening all of those guys. You're just going to go all the way around. Be careful. You don't work too hard, you don't want to break anything. Alright, so once we've got that loose, we just lift the panel up and pull it out, and then you'll have access to get the door handle pull, which is this guy here. You're just going to pull this, pop this out, and of course you'll need to undo the connections for your power window switch. Alright, I wanted to show you on undoing this. There's two little clips on the inside here. You can see them. They sit on the inside of this here. So you need to push those together to get that to pull out. And then you can come out and unthread the ball that sits in that socket. And then you're loose. The next step is you're going to pull this guy loose, which is just two-sided tape or kind of a goo, really not a tape. And you have an access piece here. You're going to pop this out, and once you pop that out of the way, if you look down there, you can see one of your bolts that hold the new one on, or the old one, and same thing on the other side. Those are 10mm, so we're going to loosen those. It doesn't hurt to have a magnet handy because you're going to drop these. I mean, sometimes you won't, but most of the time I do. At least one on each door I drop. So take those out. Now you want to keep those separate from the ones that we took out of the door panel, because you can see they're a lot shorter. So what you don't want to do is try to thread this into the new handle, because it'll crack it. So make sure you keep those two separate that hold the handle on. Alright, so we got the bolts in, or sorry, out on the outside, or on the inside. So now the handle, it actually has a clip on it, so you're going to slide it slightly forward or to your left, and that'll release that clip, and then we can see the actual assembly itself. Sometimes it's easier to pull the handle, and then you're going to unhook the push rod that goes down to the bottom to the latch. I wanted to show you once I got it out. It was kind of hard to do with the camera in my hand, but you're going to just thread this off. You can see that piece sets in there. You're just going to thread the old one out. Alright, so here's what it looks like with the old one out. I went ahead and pushed the rod back in there just because I'm going to clean it. This is a great time to clean behind this and put a little wax on it. You never get these off. You never take these off to clean, so now is a great time to be doing that. So I'm going to clean this up, and then we'll start the reassembly process. Alright, so your next step is you want to match up the handle that goes in the right spot. They all look very similar. Obviously the one with the lock goes in the driver's side door, but the other ones you could get, obviously they look the same, but the pull's on a different side. So make sure that you line it up and get the correct one, and then we're ready to start reassembly. Alright, so the rod that goes in here, we're going to thread that back on, and then you can see the clip that actually holds. So you're going to put it on, and then you're going to thread it in so it holds snug, and then you're going to tighten the two bolts, put the two bolts in the back side and tighten them back up. Alright, so we got the handle in. Sometimes you have to pull it like you're going to open it in order to get that to swing down to go in. But we've got the clip started. Now we're going to go to the back side and thread those 2 bolts back in on either side. Now make sure, like I said earlier, you do not use the ones that hold the door panel on because they're too long. Make sure you're using the correct ones here. And it's probably a good idea to have that magnet handy again, because inevitably you're going to drop one of these as you're threading them in. Alright, so I have the bolts back in and they're snug. While you're snugging them up, you need to make sure that this thing is kind of centered where it needs to be. There's not a whole lot of room for movement, but you just want to make sure that it's not crooked. And then these just need to be snug. Don't get crazy on tightening these. If you notice, they had some thread locker on them, so they're going to do fine. Just make sure that you don't over tighten them. And then we're going to test the door to make sure that it opens, because we don't want to reassemble all this and then the door not open. Alright, so the door's shut. It's working good. And we're ready to start reassembly. Now make sure, I do this every time I've done one of these, I forget to put this plug back in. It's not a big deal if you don't put it in, but you get done and you're like, man, where did that go? So make sure that you pop that back in, and then we're going to start the reassembly process. Alright, so putting this back together, it's going to go just the opposite way that you took it apart. So you're going to thread this little ball into the socket and then slide this around. There we go. And then clip it in. So push that clip in and it's seated. So that one's pretty easy. It's way easier to put it back together than it is to take it apart. Then plug your window switch back in. And if you'll notice, there's 2 little hooks on the bottom on either side. You want to make sure you get it high enough to get those in, and then we're going to start seating all of our clips. Alright, the door panel's back on. Like I said, you start from the top. There's a little channel that it sets in up here. We've got that seated. All the clips are pushed in. Now we're going to put the lock mechanism back on, put the 10mm bolts back in, and we can put our cover panels back on. Now, when I was putting this on, it did lock the door, so make sure you unlock it so you have enough room to get your piece back on for the lock. And we're going to move on to the driver's side front door. Okay, on the driver's door, there's a few more things to remove. So we're going to remove this just like we did on the back by taking this pin out of the middle. We're going to remove this piece like we did on the back door. Same thing here. But you're also going to have to pull this off. There's 2 bolts behind this. So we're going to, it feels like you're going to break it, but you pry this off. It's just held in by clips. And then we're going to take this off as well. I wanted to show you guys the points where you put pressure. So you don't want to be pulling on the ledge, or you could risk breaking it or breaking the spot where it clicks into the actual door panel itself. So there are the 3 clips. There's a hole there, there, and there. So that gives you an idea where you need to put your pry tool to pry this out. I'll also show you on this, I'd pried from the top. Once you get it loose from the top, you can see the clip that holds it. And there's a pin in the center, so we're just going to pull that straight out. Alright, so once we get all those plastic pieces out of the way, we've got the 10mm here, we've got the 2 in the middle of the door, and then we have one at the bottom and one at the top here. So we want to take all 5 of those out, and then we're going to use the pry tool, just like we did on the back, and pry those plastic clips out. We're going to lift the door panel up to get it out of this channel. Not a ton, but just to get it out of the channel up top, and pull it out of the way. Then we'll unhook all the electronics here and the door pull like we did on the back. Alright, so like we talked about on the back door, keeping these separate. So along with the ones I haven't taken out yet for the actual handle on the outside of the truck, these 2 that have the collar on them go in these 2 spots here. So you want to keep those separate from the other 3, which go here and here. Very important, because it's not going to tighten up correctly. You could risk stripping it or breaking the door panel. So make sure that you keep all your bolts separate. And now we're ready to pull the panel off. Alright, so just like we did on the back door, we're going to unplug all the electronics that go to the switch itself. And then we're going to get in here and push those 2 pins together, pull this sleeve out, and then thread this ball out of the socket. Alright, so there's one stubborn plug that's hard to get out if you leave the panel on and try to remove them from the bottom. So I popped the switch out, just 2 clips that hold the switch in. You can pop it in or pop it out from the back side, and then you'll be able to get to that last when you're unable to pull with it, the switch in its place. Alright, so we're going to pull this down out of the way like we did on the last piece, and we're going to pop these 2 guys out. You can see one of the bolts there, and you'll be able to see the other one once you get this out. Now this one's a little different as far as taking the rods off, because there's 2 rods. There's a lock rod, and then there's a pull rod for the actual, the handle on the outside. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just 1 second. Alright, we've got those out of the way. Actually, the top one you do not need to pull, sorry. But you can see there's 1 bolt, and then the other bolt. So go ahead and take those out, and be careful not to drop them, but if you do, it's not a big deal. Just make sure you got your magnet handy. Alright, so the next piece is going to be kind of hard to show you. Before you can pull the handle out, you've got to remove the lock rod that goes to the lock. So if you reach in there, you can see the one that goes up. This one right here goes up to the actual handle, which we can pull off once we get the handle out. But the lock rod is on the other side, and if you pull straight back, try to get it in here, you can see I've got it out already, but it just hooks in there, so you can pull it straight back and it'll pop out. And then I'll show you what it looks like once it's out of the truck. But now we can go ahead and slide the handle out. So we're going to push this over as we're trying to open the door, and then thread that out and unhook the piece like we did in the back. Alright, so I have that out so you can kind of see what that looks like. That cylinder just has a keeper, so we just got to get it out of that. Now you have to do that blind because you can't pull it out without unhooking that. So now that we've got it out, we can thread this one off, clean this up, and start to reinstall the new handle. I also wanted to show you what that lock rod looks like. It's kind of a hook, kind of hard to see. There it is. So that's just going to push in the new one. Now you are going to have to remove your old lock because obviously you need your lock on there, otherwise you'd have an empty hole. There's just a clip that holds that in. You can see this clip right here on the bottom. We're going to pop that out. Make sure you orient the lock and the new handle the same way it is here, so with the red piece pointing towards the back of the truck. Alright, so now we got the lock installed on the new handle, and we're ready to put this back in. So I'm going to try to thread that in at the same time. If not, we can push it in afterwards. It's not a big deal. And then of course we need to hook the lock rod up and then seat that clip. So slide it back, and then we'll put the bolts in and tighten it up. Now make sure, like I said on the back door, that you kind of center it. Sometimes it likes to move. It doesn't have a ton of room to move, but enough there it would look odd if you didn't make sure that it was centered. Alright, so I got the handle in. I was trying to put the lock rod on the lock cylinder at the same time I thread this in. I just didn't have enough room, so go ahead and slide this in, hook the handle up obviously as you're putting it in. But once you get that done, you can reach up from the back side here and pop that lock rod onto the keeper. And now we're ready to start putting the door panel back together. Alright, so just like on the back door, I want to make sure that it works before I put the panel back on. So I got the door closed, the pull's working, and then I want to make sure that my lock works too. And it does, both lock and unlock. I mean, you rarely need that with keyless entry, but anyway, I like to make sure that it works. Now we're going to make sure we put our 2 plugs back in that I always forget, and put the panel back on. We're going to hook these back up. I'm actually going to thread these through and hook them up after I get the panel on. It makes it a little easier to handle. And then of course the ball and socket. Alright, so like we did before, we're going to set that ball into the socket and then thread that underneath, hook it up so it's in. And then like I said, I'm going to thread these out and put the switch in last. Just makes things a little easier when hooking up the switch instead of trying to hang upside down. And then we're going to seat this on this rail here. So we're going to set it on the top, and then it comes down. There's two little hooks down there that set in a panel. And then make sure you check all your plastic clips. Make sure none of them are broken. If they're broken, go ahead and replace them. And we're ready to put it back on. Alright, so the door panel's back on. Now we're ready to put the handle back in place, making sure that we use the 2 bolts that we set aside, not the ones that go in the other spots. The ones with the collars go into the handle. And then put all our plastic pieces back on, and we're ready to repeat all of this on the other side. Alright guys, so as you can see, it's a relatively easy project. Didn't take me long to do. In my opinion, it makes the truck look 1,000 times better. I absolutely hate chrome door handles, and I hate texture black handles. They look terrible on a light colored truck. On a darker truck, it doesn't really bother me as much, but on a light colored truck, it just sticks out like a sore thumb. The downside is I don't have any video or pictures after I completed it, so what I'm going to do is in about a week I'm going to post up another video of all the things that I've done so far. There's a few other things that I didn't post videos on that I'm going to update you guys on, so look for that video in about a week. If you guys like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. It really helps out my channel, and if you have any comments or questions, drop them down below. I'm more than happy to answer them if I can, and subscribe to see what happens next.